My name is Mike. I'm a guy with a low education, having only graduated from middle school. The US used to be called a meritocratic society, but I'd think fewer people care about that nowadays. Nevertheless, there's someone who's been ridiculing me every day recently. That's my direct supervisor, Rachel Smith. Hey, dropout. Why are you dragging your feet with your work? Hurry it up. Yes, sorry. When she's in a bad mood, she gets rough with people like this. Moreover, she calls me dropout as a nickname. I feel humiliated, but what she's saying is true, so I'm in no position to argue back, which is frustrating. Then, one day, I went out for drinks with a colleague from work. Everyone, not just me, is fed up with our female boss's haughty attitude. Man, she's so annoying. I'd really like to get back at her. One of my colleagues even said something dangerous like that. Rachel is turning 50 this year, and I wonder if she's getting irritable because she's reaching menopause. If she'd just keep quiet, she'd actually be pretty. Well, she is an older lady though. My colleagues laughed loudly. My colleagues seem to get more vulgar as they drink more, and the candid chalk really got the place going. Indeed, Rachel is a beautiful woman with a good figure and a pretty face. She must used to be quite popular when she was younger. In fact, she married in her 20s and has one child. Well, I admit she's beautiful, but she has a difficult personality, I guess. I can imagine living with someone like that. If it's like the company atmosphere at home, she'd definitely be divorced by now. But Mike, you always get chewed out by Rachel. She mocks you with dropout. It must really get to you, right? Well, yeah, but I'm used to it. I've been told enough times that dropout is a degree for those who lack motivation. To relieve my stress, I just kept drinking. All right, let's hit the next spot. My colleagues were red in the face, putting their arms around each other and making a racket. We had a surprisingly good time, so we decided to go to a nearby bar. But at this point, they were pretty drunk and I couldn't help but wryly smile at the thought of whether they'd be okay. Excuse me, check, please. One of my colleagues took care of the bill, so I gave my bill to him and went outside for some fresh air. The cool night air felt good against my flushed skin. Maybe I'll go somewhere cooler. That's what I was thinking when I walked a little away from the bar. And then, bam! I ran into Rachel, the one who ridicules me every day. I was taken aback. Rachel was dressed nothing like her usual suit attire but in flashy clothes instead. Her hair was wavy, possibly styled with a curling iron. She was wearing a miniskirt, and her makeup was on point. You wouldn't believe she's a 50-year-old married woman. She had transformed into a stunningly seductive lady. And she was walking with a considerably younger man. Is that her husband? No, but he seems too young. We made eye contact, and seeing Rachel's surprised look, I quickly averted my eyes, thinking I'm in trouble. This area is not only a busy district, but also close to a hotel district. Could it be? While thinking that, I glanced at Rachel again. She had indeed gone towards the hotel district. No way, I've just witnessed an affair. Then, finally, my colleagues came out of the bar. Hey, what's up? Did you run into someone you know? I was taken aback by my colleagues' perceptiveness, despite being drunk. No, it's nothing. Sorry, I think I've had too much to drink. I'm gonna head home. With that, I excused them from the second round and went home with a heavy heart. The next day, while working, I couldn't help but sneak peeks at Rachel. Despite usually detesting even making eye contact with her, I inevitably found myself curious after seeing her last night. Rachel seemed as snappy as usual, but she appeared somewhat subdued today. Perhaps she was feeling particularly vulnerable about being seen by me last night, occasionally sending glances to me. Finally, Rachel gestured for me, Mike. I need to talk to you. Do you have a moment to you do, right? There was a definite urgency in her voice. I stuttered, yes, and followed her. The reason she called me out was, as expected, about last night. Were you out drinking with colleagues yesterday? She asked with a bit of hesitation. I nodded briefly, and after biting her lip slightly, did you tell anyone about what happened, that you saw me? Rachel cautiously looked up and asked. No, I haven't said anything. I went straight home after that, and I don't think anyone else saw you. Rachel seemed to exhale in relief. I see. Thank you for keeping it to yourself. You caught me at a pretty embarrassing moment. I carefully said, making sure not to be overheard. Well, it may be presumptuous of me as a single guy to say this, but I think cheating isn't right. Rachel, perhaps louder than intended in the hallway, exclaimed, What? I clarified, nervously, I mean, when I saw you with that man last night, I thought that's what was happening. What are you talking about? I was walking alone at that time. Really? I searched my hazy memory of the previous night. Wait. Now that I thought about it, the young man next to Rachel. It seemed like they were just walking in the same direction, not interacting closely. I finally realized my misunderstanding. Seriously, I was nearly the cause of spreading a nasty rumor. I'm so sorry. Well, it's okay, but me, having an affair, honestly, with how I'm feeling lately, it's scary to think I might actually do something reckless. Rachel gave a bitter smile, as if she was almost disgusted with herself for even having such a train of thought. Did something happen? I mean, with your husband? I asked, even though I thought it was somewhat impolite. Oh, you want to know? This story might take a while, she replied with a teasing smile. Today, there was something different about Rachel. She didn't carry her usual boss-like aura. Instead, she felt more like an older sister, oddly approachable. Maybe it's because I kept her secret yesterday that I've gained her trust, could that be it? I'm not sure why, but today she asked me to grab some drinks, just the two of us. It turned out to be an evening where she shared her current harsh reality. I learned she is a former race queen and has some experience as a model. It made sense given her looks. She married a successful businessman. A fitting match for an ex-model. They were happy and blessed with kids. But then, abruptly, their happiness was threatened. Her husband had a brain hemorrhage and collapsed. He survived without life-threatening injuries but was left paralyzed on his right side, leading to a wheelchair-bound life. From that point, the Smith family's life has changed drastically. Rachel found herself doing more at home, like helping her husband dress and use the toilet. Despite being tired from work, she couldn't rest at home and ended up carrying a lot of stress without realizing it. That's why my daughter, seeing this, tacked to her dad's folks. They suggested I take a break and go out with friends, she explained. So, the reason you were heading to the hotel district that time was to go drinking with a friend? Yay, that's right. With a girlfriend, of course, but even though it was a break, I felt guilty for having fun while leaving my husband behind. Saying that, Rachel's face fell into a shadow. She shared her worries about her relationship with her husband growing sour. It seems his pride was hurt, having lived in front of the family as the main provider, and now being treated like an infant every day was making him short-tempered over little things. He's changed so much, he slams the table saying, I can do this much myself, and there was even a night I left him alone in the living room out of frustration. She said with a sad chuckle, then tears spilled from her eyes. I'm trying so hard. Changing his diapers, lifting his heavy body into the wheelchair, laying him in bed, every single day, so why do I have to be yelled at? Rachel's voice was trembling. It felt like she couldn't hold back anymore. But I know he's the one who's truly suffering. He's only in his 50s, and now he's got a body that will never walk normally again, and he had to quit managing his company. It's understandable he's become self-destructive. And yet, I should be supporting him more as his wife. I just can't stand the fact that I'm not kinder to him. I feel like such a failure as a wife." She covered her face with her hands and broke down crying. Rachel, who always took pride and never showed her weaknesses, was now crying in front of me, a subordinate who she used to mock for being a dropout. Looking back, she invited me out for drinks. She must have been so cornered mentally that she invited me out for drinks just to vent, regardless of who it was. Rachel apologized to me, saying, "I've been such a terrible boss," regretting taking out her personal issues on everyone lately. I felt her pain acutely, and my desire to forgive her grew stronger. Caregiving is really hard. I also helped take care of my grandmother at home until she passed away, I said. When I mentioned that, Rachel looked up in surprise. I decided to share my past with her. Originally, I was quite good at studies. Good enough that my teachers suggested I go to a more advanced school. But that dream didn't come true, because my grandma developed dementia. It was just my grandma, my mom, and me living together. After my parents got divorced and we moved in with my grandma. She was always so kind. However, she changed a lot after a fall broke her leg and a long hospital stay. The doctor said she seemed to have developed depression. It didn't take long for her to develop dementia. She would scream loudly and try to leave the house despite not being able to walk far due to the lingering effects of her fracture. This stress of possibly causing trouble for neighbors or putting her own life at risk was immense. Especially after hearing news about a family that was held liable for an accident involving their relative with dementia, my mom became very anxious and would sometimes scold my grandma harshly. Watching the two who used to get along so well argue was hellish for me. Naturally, my mom reached her limit first. She was clearly worn out and looked like she might collapse at any moment. Seeing her like that, I decided to drop out of high school and start working. My mom objected, but I insisted, and ultimately, I prevailed. After that, my mom and I took turns taking care of my grandma while contributing to the household expenses. Thankfully, my mom's health improved, and my grandma passed away peacefully a few years ago. Now, we live a peaceful life. I didn't realize you've been through so much. You gave up your education for your family. What an incredible person. And to think I belittled you for being a dropout. I'm really sorry. Hearing this, Rachel apologized to me again. It turns out Rachel is a high school graduate herself. She aimed for the entertainment industry when she was younger but gave up halfway, always feeling inferior about her education. So I was the one person she felt she could look down on to boost her own self-esteem, and she regretted that. I'm truly a lousy boss. Recently, my daughter has been saying she'll help with her husband's care. She's still a college student and should be studying, working part-time, and enjoying her youth, but I can't help feeling sorry. Rachel said with a downcast look. I suggested home care services and paid nursing homes to her. She seemed hesitant, understandably so. I understand the reluctance to place a long-time husband into a shared living facility with strangers. I get the hesitance. It's the internal conflict about whether it's okay to abandon family so easily. So, I gave some heartfelt advice. Actually, my grandma was in a nursing home just before she passed. At first, my mom and I were hesitating about entrusting her care to others, too. The guilt of neglecting a loved one's care. But it's true that it also eased our minds. I wondered if feeling relieved meant I didn't love her. But then I remember what a caregiver told me. Maintaining a certain distance is important. Being with even the most beloved person can be tough. So, using care services isn't bad at all. Please, don't bear this alone, Rachel, and ask for help. After my long spiel, Rachel's tears started to flow again. Thanks for sharing. I'm glad I could talk to you, Mike, she said, thanking me over and over. Afterward, my boss returned to her usual self, and she started to smile more gently. It seems that using home visit services significantly reduced her stress, and her relationship with her husband improved. Her husband, being a successful businessman, had savings, so financially, it was easy to afford care services. Some people can't use care services even if they want to because they don't have the money. Rachel is very lucky in that sense. Thanks to you, Mike, my daughter is also enjoying her college life. You really saved our family. You are truly the Smith family's savior. That's an exaggeration, but I'm glad I could help a bit. As I said that, Rachel looked intently at my face. By the way, you're single, right, Mike? Seeing anyone? What? Yes, I'm single now though. Then Rachel clapped her hands. That's perfect. When I told my daughter about how caring you were with the elderly care stuff, she got interested in you. If you don't have a girlfriend, maybe I should introduce you to her, she said, showing me a photo of her college-age daughter, making me all awkward. Oh boy. The daughter of my boss. That's intimidating. But she's quite pretty. I crossed my arms, wondering what to do, conflicted.